The mining colony of Kareth 9 was a forgotten place. Cold winds blew through its metal halls, and the sky above was always dark with dust. No one smiled here. People came to Kareth 9 to disappear, to work, to survive, or to be forgotten. Worked in the lower sectors, deep underground, far from the sunlight she never saw. Her job was cleaning the waste tubes and fixing broken cables no one else touched. The other workers called her names Useless, Trashborn, and the Mistake. She never replied. She just kept working, silent, her head down. She was not always like this. Once, long ago, Lyra dreamed of building ships. She used to sketch engines on walls and smile when machines hummed back to life. But those days were gone. They beat that hope out of her, with words, with silence, with looks that made her feel invisible. Now, she was only a shadow moving through metal tunnels. One morning, as alarms echoed through the station, a new sound filled the air, one that hadn't been heard in years. A sharp hum of a Terran supply ship landing. Humans didn't come to Kareth 9. It was too far, too broken, too forgotten. But this one did. The human was tall, calm, and wore a jacket with no rank badge. He walked with quiet steps, observing everything. His name was Jack. When Jack first saw Lyra, she was crawling under a pipe, her hands black with dust, her fingers shaking from the cold. She didn't look up. No one ever did. People passed her like she wasn't even there. But Jack stopped. He watched for a full minute. She was fixing a broken panel that others had marked as junk. Her tools were old, her uniform torn, but the cable snapped into place with perfect precision. "Who told you you're nothing?" Jack asked, softly. Lyra froze. No one had spoken to her in weeks. She turned slowly, her eyes wide. I don't know, she whispered. Jack crouched beside her, looking at the panel. "You fix this?" She nodded. Double quotes. "Do you fix other machines too?" She shrugged. "Only the ones they let me touch." He tilted his head. "Looks like they should let you fix all of them." Her eyes dropped to the floor. "They say I break things." Jack looked around at the others. Some laughed. One of them, a tall overseer, sneered and said, "That girl? She couldn't fix a chair without breaking 2 legs." Jack didn't respond. He just stood, took something from his tool pouch, and handed it to Lyra. It was a small navigation core, damaged, blinking red. "Try fixing this," he said. "Not because I ordered you, just because I believe you can." She stared, the core in her hands. It was delicate, important. No one had ever trusted her with anything like this. She worked on it that night, sitting alone in the cargo bay where no one would bother her. She didn't sleep. She took it apart carefully, cleaned the broken circuits, adjusted the wiring, and by morning it blinked green. Fixed. The next day, she gave it back to Jack. He turned it over, scanned it, and smiled. "Perfect," he said. That word hit her harder than any insult ever had. No one had called anything she did perfect before. He reached into his jacket again and pulled out something else, something that made her heart stop. It was a small badge. It read, "Engineer's Assistant, Temporary Assignment." Her name was printed at the bottom. She held it in shaking hands. "I can't wear this," she said quietly. "You already earned it," Jack said. "You just didn't know it." Behind them, the same overseer who mocked her barked, "You giving her toys now, human? Next she thinks she's important." Jack turned toward him, his voice cold. "She's more useful than half your crew." The overseer stepped back, stunned. That evening, Lyra sat in her tiny sleeping pod, staring at the badge. She hadn't cried in years, not since her mother disappeared. But now, tears fell silently. Someone had seen her. Someone believed in her. For the first time in a long time, she whispered to herself, "Maybe I'm not broken. Outside her door, Jack walked past without knocking, knowing she needed that moment alone. But tomorrow, he would return with more to teach her, because Jack saw what the others never did. Wasn't nothing. She was everything they were afraid of. Asterisk. The next day, Lyra walked through the station with the badge on her chest. Some stared, others laughed. A few muttered that she must have stolen it, but she didn't care. Her fingers touched the smooth metal again and again, proof that someone believed in her. Jack found her in the maintenance tunnel, already working. He smiled. Didn't expect you to show up early. She looked up, nervous. Am I still allowed? You're not just allowed, Jack said, handing her a datapad. You're requested. She stared at the pad. It held schematics of a small shuttle engine, a complicated one. Her hands tightened. I don't know if I can do this. Jack crouched beside her. You already fixed a navigation core. That thing was military grade. You did it without any help. That was different, she said. No, he replied. The difference is now. You know someone's watching. Now you're afraid to fail. Lyra stayed quiet. Jack added gently. Failure is just a part of getting good. I've failed more times than I can count. But no one ever let you fail, did they? They just punished you. She nodded slowly. He gave her a half smile. Then let's change that. They worked together for hours. Jack didn't hover. He gave advice only when she asked. She solved problems quickly, even created her own shortcut to balance the engines. Output flow. He raised his eyebrows. Where'd you learn that? She shrugged. I used to take apart old things. I liked seeing how they worked. You've got a mechanic's brain, he said. Not many do. That evening, they tested the engine. It started with a smooth hum. Stable. Clean. Lyra's hands were still dirty, but her face had color now. A spark in her eyes. A part of her that had been buried was starting to return. But not everyone liked what they saw. Two of the older workers stood by the fuel line, whispering. One of them, Gresh, had worked on the station for 10 years. He didn't like humans. And he hated the idea of a nothing girl getting praise. She's getting bold, Gresh said, walking around like she matters. She fall, the other replied. They always do. Later that night, Lyra found her sleeping pod door scratched. Someone had carved the word fake into the metal. She stared at it in silence. When? Jack saw it. His face hardened. Who did this? Lyra shook her head. It doesn't matter. Yes, Jack said. It does. They want to break you again. But not this time. She looked away. I don't want to cause trouble. If they hate me quietly, I can still work. Jack paused, then sat beside her. Why do you think I picked you? She shrugged. He leaned forward. Because you were still trying even when no one saw you. That takes more strength than any of them have. Her eyes filled, but she blinked fast to stop the tears. You saw something in me? She whispered. I still do, he said. But the question is, do you? She didn't answer right away. But later, when she was alone, she picked up a small shard of metal and began scraping the word fake off her door. Every stroke was slow, firm, determined. She wouldn't erase the pain, but she would cover it, replace it. When Jack returned the next day, the word was gone. In its place was a new one, fixer. He smiled. That day, he gave her something new. A damaged drone, used in deep core mining. Complex, heavy, dangerous. Think you're ready? He asked. She nodded. Let me try. As she worked, she didn't notice the silent group watching. 3 human crew members from Jack's ship had come to see the broken girl he kept talking about. But what they saw wasn't broken. They saw hands moving fast, Eyes scanning, decisions made in seconds. They saw potential. When she finished, the drone lifted into the air and hovered steady. One of the crew whispered, "That wasn't luck." Jack replied quietly, "No, that's talent buried under scars." Hook ending. As the drone hovered, a signal pinged from orbit. A high-level officer had received a report. "Prepare the transfer file," the officer said. "This, Lyra, may be what we've been looking for." The lights in the lower bay flickered again, Dot. It was the third time this week. But this time, something felt wrong. Lyra was under a platform, adjusting a relay core, when a loud alarm buzzed through the corridors. Red lights began flashing above her. Steam hissed from the vents. Then came the voice. "Power surge in Sector C, repeat. Surge in Sector C." She quickly crawled out, her fingers still holding a wrench, and looked around. People were panicking. Systems were failing across the station lights going out, doors locking, power dropping. Then, almost too fast, the announcement echoed again. Source of the surge manual interference detected. Technician ID, Lyra 7. Silence followed. All heads turned toward her. She froze. One of the supervisors, the same Gresh who carved her door, stepped forward with a fake look of concern. "It was her," he shouted. "I told you she wasn't ready. She must have touched something she didn't understand." "That's a lie." Jack's voice cut through the tension as he entered the room. She was working in a different sector. But the station commander had already walked in. His face was cold, his eyes unreadable. "Is that true, Lyra?" he asked. I was in the engine bay," she said quietly. "I didn't touch anything in Sector C." Jack stepped forward. "Check the logs. You'll see she had nothing to do with it." "But," Gresh smirked, "what if she used a bypass? You think she's too dumb, but maybe she's too clever. Playing innocent while causing damage." Lyra's eyes widened in shock. Her heart pounded. Her hands started to shake again. The commander didn't wait. "Until further notice, you are suspended from technical duties. You'll be confined to quarters." Jack's fists clenched. "Sir, with respect, this is wrong. You're blaming her without proof." The commander looked away. "We can't take chances. The station could have exploded." Lyra didn't argue. She just quietly handed over her badge and walked away. Her sleeping pod felt smaller than ever. She curled up in a corner, not touching the bed, not moving. All the memories returned like poison being called useless, punished for others' mistakes, blamed just for existing. It was happening again. Everything Jack tried to fix was being undone. But this time, she wasn't completely alone. Jack entered without a word and sat beside her. "They framed me," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "I didn't do anything." "I know that too." Silence hung between them. Then Lyra asked, "Why does this always happen to me?" Jack looked at her seriously. "Because you're not supposed to be here. Not by their rules. You're too good, and that scares them." She didn't reply. Instead, she stared at her hands. "If I leave, it all goes back to nothing." "No," he said. "If you leave, they win." Jack stood and held out a small black cube. "What's this?" she asked. "A copy of the security feed," he said. "I pulled it from my ship's camera. It proves you weren't anywhere near Sector C." Her eyes widened. "Why didn't you give this to the commander?" "Because I'm giving it to you," Jack said. "You're the one who should stand and prove them wrong." She held the cube like it was fire dangerous, but full of power. He knelt beside her. "You can let them break you again, or you can show them who you really are." For the first time since the accusation, Lyra's eyes burned not from sadness, but something stronger. Anger, righteous anger. She stood up slowly and said, Then we give this to the High Command. Not the local ones, the real ones. Jack nodded. And Jack? She added, Yes, I'm done hiding. They walked into the command chamber the next day, with heads held high. People watched from behind terminals. Some whispered. Gresh stood near the wall, arms crossed, ready to gloat. But Lyra stepped forward and placed the black cube on the command console. I request a full review, she said, voice steady. This is proof of my innocence. The commander blinked. You're challenging our report? Yes, she said, because it's wrong. The cube lit up. A hologram showed her working far away from the incident. Another angle showed someone. Else Gresh near the Sector C panel just minutes before the surge. The room went silent. Jack crossed his arms. Still think it was her? Gresh tried to speak, but the damage was done. Hook ending. A message flashed on the main screen. Transfer. Request approved. Lyra 7 to report aboard Earth Fleet vessel Radiant Dawn for immediate duty. And this time, no one could take it from her. Asterisk. The Earth Fleet vessel Radiant Dawn was not like KARETH-9. It flew through clean, starlit space, its halls bright, quiet, and filled with focus. Every step echoed with purpose. Every officer walked with pride. Lyra stood at the shuttle bay doors, holding a small bag with her tools, and the only possession that truly mattered, her engineer's badge no longer temporary. Her hands still trembled, not from fear, but from disbelief. She had left Careth 9 behind. She had survived. And now, for the first time in her life, she was wanted. Jack walked beside her, but didn't say much. He knew this wasn't his moment. It was hers. At the docking platform, an officer waited, a woman with sharp eyes, a gray streak in her black hair, and command in her voice. You're Lyra? She asked. Lyra nodded. I'm Commander Vale, Chief of Systems. You'll report directly to me. Lyra almost stepped back, but Jack gave her a gentle nudge forward. Yes, ma'am, she said quietly. The commander studied her. You're young and unranked. Lyra's fingers tightened on her bag. I was never given a rank, only tasks. Vale paused, then stepped aside. Let's see what you can do. 2 hours later, Lyra stood in front of a massive control engine that powered the ship's gravity systems. It was different from anything she'd touched before. Complex layers of Terran tech woven into alien upgrades. Some of it pulsed with heat. Other parts looked unstable. This unit's been giving errors, Vale said. No one's been able to find the root cause. You get 1 hour. Lyra swallowed hard. The weight of her new chance pressed down on her. She could feel eyes watching, whispering, but then she did what Jack had taught. Her she blocked them out. She breathed, and she listened. Not to people, to the machine. Her hands moved slowly at first. She touched a panel here, tested a circuit there, then faster. She found a loose grounding cable, then a damaged cooling node hidden beneath a panel others hadn't checked. As she worked, her thoughts became clear. Each part made sense to her in a way. It didn't to others. And then she heard it. The shift in the engine's hum, less stressed, smoother. She stepped back. Try it now, she said. A tech officer ran a quick scan. His eyebrows shot up. All green. Commander Vale raised one brow. How did you do it? Lyra replied softly. It wasn't broken. It was misunderstood. Over the next few days, Lyra became a name people knew. She fixed old systems others had given up on. She optimized the ship's power flow using methods that hadn't been documented. She didn't talk much, but her hands spoke, louder than any voice. Even the senior engineers started coming to her for advice. And through it all, Jack watched from afar, quietly proud. But one night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She stood alone at the viewport, staring into the stars. The past still haunted her, the way people used to look at her, call her nothing. It wasn't easy to forget. Jack joined her, holding 2 steaming cups. He handed her one. "You haven't spoken to me in 2 days," he said gently. "I've been working." "I know. You're doing great." She looked down. "Then why do I still feel broken?" Jack took a slow sip of his drink. "Because healing doesn't happen in a day," he said. "You're not fixed, Lyra. You're rising. Piece by piece." She nodded slowly. "It still hurts. That's because what they did was real. But what you're becoming is even more real." She turned to him. "Why did you help me?" Jack smiled softly. "Because someone once helped. Me too. I saw in you what I used to see in myself." Lyra blinked. That she hadn't expected. Hook ending. A sudden alert echoed through the ship. Distress signal received. Origin, Vega outpost. Unknown enemy. Damage critical. Vale's voice followed. "All engineers to station. Lyra, report to the bridge immediately." And as Lyra moved through the halls, one thing was clear. This time, she wasn't the broken one. She was the one they were calling for. The bridge of the Radiant Dawn pulsed with red light as the emergency alert echoed again. Distress signal confirmed. Vega outpost is under attack. Lyra stepped onto the bridge, her heart racing. The giant holoscreen in front of the crew showed a spinning outpost, fires blooming across its surface. Life support failing. Signals cutting in and out. Commander Vale didn't waste a second. "We're jumping to Vega. ETA, 6 minutes. Lyra, I want your eyes on their grid systems. If we dock and their power shorts out, we lose everyone." Lyra nodded, moving to the tactical console. Her fingers danced across the controls. The outpost system was a mess, half of it offline. Security protocols locked. Energy bleeding into space. She narrowed her eyes. "This wasn't just an attack," she said quietly. "Someone scrambled their stabilizers on purpose." Vale turned toward her. "You're saying it was sabotage?" Lyra nodded. "Someone didn't want them rescued." Jack, standing at the edge of the bridge, stepped forward. "Whoever did, this might still be there." Minutes later, the Radiant Dawn dropped out of jump above Vega outpost. It looked worse up close. One side of the station had been torn open. Ships floated lifeless near the docking bay. A strange black mark-like burnt acid stretched across the outer hull. The attackers were gone, but the damage remained. Lyra suited up and entered the engineering shuttle, joined by 2 Terran Marines. The commander's voice came over comms. "Your job is simple: stabilize the station's main grid. If that fails, we lose over 200 people still trapped inside." Lyra nodded. Her voice came steady. "Understood." The moment they boarded, it became clear the station's core was seconds from collapse. Red sparks leapt from walls. Oxygen warnings blinked everywhere, and smoke curled in every corridor. The Marines pushed ahead to search for survivors. Lyra ran to the control room and dropped to her knees in front of the main console. It was completely fried. But deep inside, behind the melted plating, was a chance 1 power coil still untouched. She pulled out her tools and got to work. Sweat formed on her faceplate. Time was slipping fast. One wrong move, and the system would go critical. But she didn't hesitate. She disconnected the damaged lines, rerouted emergency coolant, and bridged power through her backup cell from the shuttle. Her fingers moved faster than ever before. She didn't think of Careth 9. She didn't hear the voices of the past. She just worked. And then, beep. The system blinked green. Power surged back through the station. Lights flickered on. Life support. Returned. And across the radio came a message. "We're breathing again. We're alive." Back on the Radiant Dawn, the bridge erupted in applause. Commander Vale smiled. At her back, now, When Lyra returned, covered in grime, her braid burned at the ends, she didn't expect what came next. Every crew member stood as she entered. Even Vale. "You saved the outpost," Vale said. "I just fixed what was broken." Lyra replied, "You did more than that," the commander said. "You proved yourself to everyone, including me." Then Vale stepped aside and revealed a silver case. Inside was a new badge. Technical Officer, Earth Fleet Check, grinned from the back of the room. Lyra took a slow breath. "I'm not sure I'm ready." "You are," Vale said. "Because when it mattered most, you stood alone, and you didn't break." Lyra reached forward and took the badge in her hand. It felt heavy but right. For the first time, she felt tall. That evening, as stars drifted quietly outside her quarters, Lyra placed her old badge beside the new one. She didn't throw it away. She left it there to remind her of who she was, and how far she'd come. Jack joined her again, holding 2 cups like always. "You've changed," he said. She smiled. "I've remembered who I am." "And who's that?" She looked out at the stars. "The girl they left behind," she whispered, "is gone." Hook ending. A message pinged across her console classified high priority. Lyra 7, report to Earth Command. A new mission awaits. One only you can handle. Asterisk. The Earth Fleet shuttle flew fast and silent through the stars, heading toward the central command station above Terra Prime. Lyra sat alone in the passenger bay, staring out the small window. Her new badge, Chief Technical Officer, was clipped to her jacket. It still felt unreal. The girl who once cleaned floors with broken tools now carried Earthfleet's highest technician rank. But her mission wasn't over. Not yet. The message she'd received was short. A developing colony on the edge of the viral belt needs urgent support. Power failing, civil unrest, possible sabotage. They asked for Earth's best, and Earth sent her. The command station was massive, thousands of ships docked, officers from dozens of species walking together, all looking sharp and proud. When Lyra stepped off the shuttle, heads turned, not because of her rank, but because many of them recognized her story. The girl from Kareth 9, the one they said was broken, now walking into command with her chin high, her steps steady. She was led into a private meeting chamber where Admiral Ross himself waited. He stood as she entered. "Lyra," he said, "it's good to finally meet you." She nodded respectfully. "Admiral." He activated a hologram of the colony in question, Dara 5, a quiet outpost that had recently reported rising problems. Power blackouts, equipment failures, and fear spreading among settlers. "We need someone who doesn't just fix machines," Ross said. "We need someone who understands what it means to be ignored, underestimated, and still rise." Lyra looked at the flickering hologram. She saw herself in that colony, and she answered with one word: "Send me." 2 days later, her shuttle touched down on Dara-5. It was worse than expected. Children sat cold near empty heat coils. Machines sparked and failed. The colony's leaders argued over supplies, while engineers struggled just to keep doors sealed. Lyra didn't wait for orders. She rolled up her sleeves and walked into the heart of it all. She didn't shout. She didn't demand. She listened. She watched Dot. She saw how their systems were wired incorrectly, how someone had tampered with the backup network. She found the problems one by one, and she showed the engineers there how to solve them. But more importantly, she showed them they could matter. One night, after restoring the main generator, she stood outside near a quiet campfire where several young alien girls huddled. They looked scared, dirty, forgotten, just like she once was. One of them asked in a soft voice, "Are you from Earth?" Lyra smiled gently. "I am." The girl looked at her hands. "They say Earth only sends its best." Lyra knelt beside her. "Do You want to know a secret? The girls leaned closer. I used to be nothing, Lyra whispered. At least, that's what they told me. The smallest one asked, What changed? Lyra touched her heart. Someone saw me, she said. And then I learned to see myself. Next day, news spread across the colony Lyra had fixed the system core and exposed a saboteur hiding among the engineers. The people began to trust again. The children began to smile. And then a ceremony was held. Not for medals, not for rank, but for honor. The colony named a new tech training program after her, the Lyra Initiative, for those with no voice, no title, no chance. Until now, back aboard the Radiant Dawn, Jack waited at the window, watching the planet turn slowly below. The door slid open, and Lyra stepped in, her uniform dusty, her boots cracked, but her eyes brighter than ever. You did it, he said. Didn't reply. She just walked up and hugged him tight. You reminded me what I was worth, she whispered. Now I've reminded others. Jack smiled. You weren't just worth something, Lyra, he said. You were always everything.